Hey guys, welcome back to Francesca's Books, also known as Pavis Francesca across TikTok and Instagram. I am Francesca and of course these are my books. Thank you so much for clicking on this video. This is actually my first video I'm filming in 2024 and I'm so excited to share so many more book recommendations with you guys this year. You guys know we're going to be talking about our 5-star Kindle reads of 2023 in this video, but first I'm going to give you a quick overview of my Kindle, what model I have, just to answer any questions. So the Kindle I have is Kindle Paperwhite. I got it for Christmas last year, so we're talking literally just 12 months ago. It is the Kindle Paperwhite 2021. I have this like little old person style cover on it because I had the cool, like really cool clear case with all the stickers on and just tried to look like really indie, and then my screen just ended up getting scratched. Just was not practical at all. So now I have like a proper screen protector and a real screen protector as well. I have my books assigned into these little collections. I'm not sure everybody even knows still that this is a thing, but it's just so easy to do. You literally just click on the book and click add to collection. So I've got a fantasy TBR, a thriller TBR, a romance TBR, and then the books that I've actually read already. So of course if they're Kindle Unlimited, you do have to, well, you don't have to return them, but you would probably return them because you can only take out a certain amount. And then I have just like a file that's like uncollected, so those are the books that you've like bought and I just haven't popped into a collection yet. So really quickly, if you've not actually heard of Kindle Unlimited, it's like Amazon's service where you can almost rent books. So you pay a subscription of like £9 a month, I think it is, last time I checked. And then you can read up to like 30 books at a time, but there is quite a decent selection on Kindle Unlimited. So I do personally have it and I do really like it. I'm not sure I make my full money's worth out of it because I do end up buying a lot of books in like their monthly 99p Kindle sale, but I still do recommend you have it. Every month I post on my Instagram the books that are on their 99p Kindle sale as well, so if you're interested, go over to my Instagram and check those out. Since I've got my Kindle, I honestly just read so much more. It's fantastic having a physical book. I'm reading it and obviously you have the freedom to like write notes or anything else that you like to do. But having a Kindle is just so convenient and it literally fits in pretty much any handbag, like even if it's a small handbag. So if you're going out for the day, if you're going shopping, you just don't know, you might want to read on the train or if you're waiting for a friend, and the convenience of that is just like absolutely unmatched. This is definitely not an ad, by the way, I'm just obsessed. So let's get into it. Here are all the 5-star Kindle books that I read in 2023. So the first one is Never Lie by Frida McFadden. So this was actually on Kindle Unlimited, but I know none of Frida McFadden's books are particularly expensive to buy on Amazon either. Obviously the Kindle version, I think they're all between like £1 and £3. I've never seen one that's super expensive. So this book follows a married couple. They buy the house of their dreams. They've like had that eye on it for so long. They move in and it's like the best day of their life. And then a few days later they get trapped in a snowstorm, so they can't like leave the property at all. They had like an estate agent and all the people like coming to try and like finalize everything, but obviously nobody could get in or out. So they're in there, they're trapped, and then like weird things start happening. One of the like paintings moved, and then our female main character was just like, surely not, like surely not. So after all this, they're just not convinced they even want this house anyway, but they have to like wait out this snowstorm and then decide after. I actually read this book nearly a year ago now and I still think about it because I just couldn't even comprehend like the ending. It was like twist after twist at the end. So normally in these kind of books you just get like one main plot twist, but it was just like twist, twist, twist. It was just literally so good. It was really scenic to read in January as well, so I really enjoyed that side of it. It was literally one of the easiest 5 stars I've ever given. Like sometimes you just literally finish a book and you're just like, yeah, 5 star, like just immediately, and this was one of them. I didn't guess any of the twists and I'm usually pretty good at it, like especially with Frida McFadden books I feel like sometimes they can be predictable, but I think this one was just, it was just incredible. The second book actually isn't a thriller, and you guys know me, I'm just a thriller girly through and through, but sometimes I do like a romance palette cleanser or a light fantasy palette cleanser. Sometimes they just like, that's just what you need after reading so many like kind of similar thriller books. So my next Kindle 5-star read was Yours Truly by Abby Jimenez. This book follows a female and a male doctor who both work in the emergency room in like a hospital in America. They're both kind of socially awkward and end up kind of accidentally sending each other letters instead of communicating at work. And they realise that like the first impressions they got of each other were just so off. This was one of those romance books where you're genuinely invested in the characters and they feel lifelike and you're just genuinely rooting for them. I feel like some romance books are just very superficial and you're reading it for something easy to read as opposed to like genuinely believing in the characters, but this was absolutely one of those. I loved it. So the next one is like a thriller romance crossover. So it's the Mind F series by St. Abbey. This is actually made up of 5 novellas, but I just kind of class it as one book. The novellas kind of add up to about 600-700 pages, so it's just kind of a book on the longer side. I'm not really sure why the author split it into the 5 novellas, but it works anyway. So this follows a serial unaliver called Lana, and she basically is going around like writing all the people that have wronged her in her life by them. But then the FBI agent who's assigned to her case is actually the guy that she started dating. This isn't a spoiler, by the way, this happens within the first 30 or 40 pages. This is just the plot of the book. So as soon as you realise that, you're like, oh my god, like what could go wrong here? Obviously everything. But this book was literally just one on its own. I've never read anything like it, and I probably never will again. I think it does err on the side of dark romance, but I mean, it satisfied this thriller girly through and through. I feel like this is one of those as well where you end up questioning your own morals. So because of how like morally grey pretty much everything is that happens in the book, you're kind of sat there like, what call would I have made in that situation? The actual arc of this series like heated up perfectly as well. By like novella 3, I was just so invested. I just read the next 2 like immediately after. I think I read this in a few days. Even though it was so long, like the overall story arc, it just kept me absolutely gripped. This one's on Kindle Unlimited as well. I highly recommend you check it out. You could always read the first novella, which I think is just over 100 pages, to kind of get an idea of whether you're going to like it before committing to the rest of the books. The next book is Drowning by TJ Newman. So this book opens on an absolutely wild ride. You basically open the book in the middle of all the action. This book follows a plane that's just about to crash into the Atlantic Ocean, and it follows a few people who decide to stay on board as opposed to trying to evacuate the plane in the middle of the sea. The thinking is that the plane will be watertight, so as long as they don't fall too far below the surface, they should have a better chance than if the plane was to leak gas and start fire in the sea. I don't know, I don't really get the logistics. But anyway, you start in the middle of the action. It's super intense from page 1. This is one of those books that if you want something that's just like go, go, go from page 1, this is definitely up your street. I've literally never been so moved by a thriller book. I mean, kind of like romance and fantasy, sometimes you can kind of be a bit like, but this was a thriller book that really got to me. I was genuinely rooting for every single character, especially our male main character. This book did literally make me tear up at the end, and afterwards I felt so silly, like nearly crying my eyes out at a thriller book, but it was just absolutely brilliant and so, so well written as well. Then I read You With A View, which is another romance book. So there's only 2 that have made this list, and this is the second one, but it wholeheartedly deserves a place here. It is a new release. It only came out in 2023, and it does like involve like modern day technology, which I know some people feel like kind of dates a book, but this book kind of centers a little bit around TikTok. But it was literally so much more than that. So it follows Noelle, who's our female main character. She's recently lost her grandma, and she's like going through all her stuff. It's quite like a sad opening, but she's going through like some of her old photos and things, and finds a photo of her grandma and a guy that she doesn't recognize, like not her granddad, like just this like other guy, and she's just like, So as anyone from Gen Z would do, she puts it on TikTok and just goes like, does anyone recognize this guy? Like, this is the story, like I just need to know. And then the grandson of the guy reaches out. I did literally read this book in a day. It was that good. I just couldn't put it down. It was super, super slow burn. And I think having some family bereavement as well kind of made this book so much more hard hitting for me, but it was just beautiful. The next Kindle 5-star read is The Only One Left by Riley Sager. If you know me, you know I'm a massive, massive fan of Riley Sager already, and this was his release of 2023. So this is set in the 80s on like a really remote house on a cliffside, so it's very atmospheric, and it follows our female main character Kit. She goes to care for a woman named Lenora Hope, and she's like a suspected unaliver, but now she can't talk and she's completely paralysed. This book reminds me a lot of The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo if it was set as a thriller. So our main character, like Lenora Hope, she wants to tell Kit her story, but she can only do it on a typewriter. So it's kind of almost done like an interview style, like The Seven Husbands. This is definitely the best Riley Sager book that I've read so far. I just so enjoyed it. This book had multiple twists throughout the book instead of like a massive twist at the end, and I just absolutely was enthralled by this one. The next book is Sometimes I Lie by Alice Feeney. This one was on Kindle Unlimited when I read it. I'm not sure if it is anymore though, so we'll have to double check. This book follows our female main character who wakes up in a coma in hospital, and she's unable to speak or move, but she can literally hear everything that's going on around her, and it is so frustrating. So everybody that comes in and out of the hospital, she can hear every conversation that's been had. She can hear all the doctors like updating about her health, so it's quite scary in that sense. It's told in her current state exactly like what she's thinking, but it's also obviously told in a series of flashbacks to understand how she got into the coma in the first place. This book was so twisty, and this was one of those where the final page was kind of like open-ended, so if you're not a fan of those, maybe stay away. I think I personally loved it because I was like, oh my god, like literally what's gonna happen next. But my mum, for example, was not a fan of like the lack of closure at the end, so yeah, maybe one to bear in mind. I absolutely love this, and I do love Alice Feeney's books as well. Rock, Paper, Scissors like made my top books of 2023 in paperback, and I am just a massive fan of her work. However, I feel like some of her books are so different. So she's one of those authors where you probably wouldn't be able to tell like each book that was written by her. You could probably guess from a range of authors. For example, Daisy Darker was just not her usual style in my opinion, whereas like Sometimes I Lie was absolutely fantastic, but I guess that's just how authors kind of progress throughout their career as well. And the final book that I rated 5-star on Kindle in 2023 was The Last Passenger by Will Dean. I actually read these in the few days between Christmas and New Year, so this was a really late addition to this list, but it was absolutely incredible. This was one of the most unique books I've ever read. It follows our female main character Kaz, who wakes up on a cruise ship and she's just completely alone. There's just no one else there. I can't even go into more what happens after that because this book just took plot twists that I just would never ever have seen coming. Like the narrative just went in so many ways that my jaw literally just dropped several times because you just didn't expect whatever was coming next. Whatever you thought the reason was for her being alone on this cruise ship, and whatever you thought was going to happen in the series of events that came after that, just didn't happen every single time. This was another one of those books that I just immediately gave 5-star. I finished it on my Kindle, I marked it as read, and I was just like, how can this book not be 5-star? I just had the best time. This book's written by the same author as The Last Thing to Burn, which I actually only rated, I think, a 2-star. I really didn't enjoy it, but that just shows the scope that authors can write at. It was just, yeah, I absolutely love this one. So out of over 100 books, these were the 8 that I gave 5-star that I read on my Kindle. I highly recommend all of them, of course, or they would not have made this list, but they are just brilliant books. Out of like so many that I've read, I just can't recommend them enough. I've read so many thriller books by now, but of course I'm always looking for more and I love getting your guys' recommendations, so don't forget to comment and let me know. If you're not so much of a Kindle girly and you want to check out my physical books that I gave 5-star this year, I will link the video at the end, and don't forget to like and subscribe, and I can't wait to see you next time.